No, well, I don't. Literally nobody in here knows who that is. I don't know who it is, but I thought I know something.
Alright, so everything that we've done up until now, so basically just yesterday, was all with right triangles. So all the trick stuff that we know has been based off of right triangles. So what we're doing today is learning how to handle it when they're not right triangles. So we've got law of sines that we're going to talk about today and law of cosines that we're going to talk about tomorrow. And there's a bunch of different cases, which is explained up here for when you use these. But basically, anytime you don't have a right triangle, you're going to have to use law of sines or law of cosines to like find your missing sides and missing angles. So that's what we're going to do. So the four cases that we were talking about is like if you have one side and two angles. If you have two sides and one angle, then you're going to use law of sines. And then for the other two cases, 3 and 4, we'll do law of cosines. So we'll look at those tomorrow. But for your law of sines, this section is just proving to you like how we get all of that. So if you're interested in that, you can look there. But all you need to know is this right here, which is basically just the proportion. If you put the side length over sine of that angle, you can just set up all those proportions and solve for whatever you need. So it's pretty straightforward, not too bad. Y'all ready to go ahead and try some? Okay. So for the first one, you're given a triangle. It tells you that angle A is 40, angle B is 60, and side A is A. So basically, as long as you have one side and one angle pair, then you can use law of sines to solve for everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and draw our triangle because I think it's really hard to tell what they're talking about if you can't see it. So we'll say A, B, and C. They told us that angle A was 40, angle B is 60, and side A is 4. So do we know where side A would go?
Anywhere.
So side A is going to be the side that's across from angle A. Does that make sense? So our angle A is right here, which means side A is over here. So this side is going to be 4. Is that okay? That's kind of labeled for you on the big triangle up top here. So like angle A, side A, angle C, side C, angle B, side D. I don't know why it's D, but that would be side B. Probably just because they're doing different things there. But anyway. No, it doesn't matter where you put them. Yeah, yeah. Is that better? Alright, so like we said, as long as you've got an angle and a side that is like partnered together, so we could say sine of angle A and then side A, we have those. Then you can set up your proportions and find anything else that you need for this triangle. So we'll be using these right up here. So I'm going to try to get that so we can see both. So our side A was 4. So we'll say 4 over sine of 40 equals, and then if we want to find side B, we'll put a little b up top, and then we know that the angle B was 60, so you could say sine of 60 on the bottom there. Is that okay? Alright, so cross multiply to solve that. So 4 times sine of 60, and then I'll write this one out, but then probably not after this. 4 times sine of 60 equals b times sine of 40. So then to get b by itself, you're doing 4 times sine of 60 over sine of 40. And you can type that straight in your calculator, and what do you get? Yep, so side B is going to be 5.4. Is that all right? What do you mean? That might just be a coincidence for this one. Yeah, I would not bank on that for every time.
We have to solve for side C too.
Yes, so before we can find side C though, we need the angle there. But we can find that fairly easily, right? Because all your angles have to add up to be 180. We already know we have 40 and 60, that's 100. So what does angle C have to be? 80. So we know that C is going to be 80 degrees. So then we'll set up those proportions again to find side C. So I'm still going to use 4 over sine of 40. I just like to stick to the same one, but that's just me. So 4 over sine of 40 equals little c, we want to know side C over sine of 80, because that was the angle measure that we found for C. So again, cross multiply, solve for C there. And we got like 6.1. Is that okay? Questions on that? So as far as like law of sines are concerned, that's about all there is to it. You may have to do inverse sines, so like you're given more sides than angles, and we'll deal with that in a second. I'm going to put a little line through here so we can look at the next one. Are we good to go on to the next part? Alrighty, so looking at part B over there, this time they're telling you that angle A is 35 degrees, angle B is 15 degrees, and side C is 5. So we'll draw our triangle for that, and A, B, and C. So angle A is 35 degrees, angle B is 15 degrees, and side C is 5. So right now we don't have like an angle and side pair. Could we find one? Yes. Right, we could find our missing angle, right? We could find angle C. How would you do that? 180 minus the 2 that we already have. So 180 minus 35 minus 15, what do you get? 130. So we know the angle C is 130. So now that we have that angle, we know that side C is 5, so we can use that to start setting up our proportions. So we'll say 5 over sine of 130 equals, we'll just find A first, so we'll say little a over sine of 35. And then we'll cross multiply and solve for A there. Yes, we should be in degree mode for these. And what do we get for A? 3.7, that okay? Do you have any questions right now? Alright, so we'll do the same thing to try to find side B. So we'll say 5 over sine of 130 equals little b over sine of 15 this time. And then cross multiply, solve for b. And what do we end up getting there?
1.7. We're doing a fraction.
I can't remember.
Is this like, is that?
Are we all right? Do you have questions right now?
Did you get it?
How do we get those? So you would like cross multiply and solve for A. So you'd be doing like 5 times sine of 35 and then A times sine of 130. And then you have to solve for A, so you're dividing by sine of 130 again. So really you can just do 5 times sine of 35 over sine of 130. And that'll get you there. Does that make any sense? So as long as it's set up like that, that'll work. But if you're not sure, just cross multiply and solve. Do I need to work out those steps? Would that be helpful?
No.
So sometimes funny things happen because this can't just be too easy, right? So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see everything that it's saying here, but then we can get back in. So sometimes when you have to do inverse, to find like your angle. So they give you more sides than they give you angles. And you have to do inverse sine to find your angle. We know that you can get more than one answer from that, right? We talked about how to do that. Like, so if sine is positive in quadrants 1 and 2, then you got to find the other angle there. So it's possible that you will only have one solution from your triangle when you do this, or it's possible you may have two solutions, and so there could be two possible triangles that we could make based on the information they gave us. That's what's going to happen over here. And then it's also possible that based on the information they gave you, you can't make a triangle at all. So we've kind of got to work with those and see what happens there. So we're going to do more practice with these specifically once we get done with the notes. So it'll kind of be like classwork, but we'll do it together.
Okay.
At least half of it. So we're going to go ahead and try the first one. It's pretty straightforward, so it won't be too bad. So they're giving you this triangle, and they tell you that angle A is 40, side A is 3, and side B is 2. So we need to draw that triangle and label what we can. So again, angle A is 40, side A is 3, and side B is 2. So that's going to be the side across from angle B. Now before we had two angles, so you could just subtract from 180 to get your missing angles. You can't do that here, so you've got to solve for it a little bit differently. We do have a side and angle pair, so we can set up our law of sines like we were doing before. So we could say 3 over sine of 40, because that's our A pairs, is going to equal 2 over sine of B. So then we're solving for sine of B. Now this is where I typically mess up. I want this to be my answer, and I forget to do inverse sine of this number. So don't do that. Just do better than I do. So we would cross multiply from here. So like 3 times sine of B, and then 2 times sine of 40. But then you have to divide by 3 again. So we could type that in our calculator. 2 sine of 40 divided by 3. Does that make sense? Yeah, does anybody need to see that worked out? 0.4. Can we go a few more decimal places? That's good. Are we all right with that? Questions? Probably got that number? So then we've got to do inverse sine of this number. And that's going to be what angle B is. So do inverse sine of 0.428. And we get 25. I have 25.4. Is that what y'all got? 25.4? Yeah. Okay. So sine is positive, correct? This angle is a positive angle. And that happens in what quadrant?
1.
Quadrant 1. So where else is sine going to be positive? And 2. So we know that we have like this 25.4 degree angle here. So it would happen again in quadrant 2, where this is also 25.4. So how would we figure out what that angle is all the way around this way? 180 minus 25.4. So what do we get when we do 180 minus 25.4? $154.6. Yeah, is that okay? So when we do that inverse sine, we know that B could be 25.4, or it could be 154.6. So we have to be prepared to handle both triangles depending on which one, like which angle we use there. So if we go back to what it already told us about this triangle, we know that angle A is 40. So if we have an angle that's 25, an angle that's 40, we could have some other angle and we wouldn't like bust that 180 mark that we have to add up to, right? Does that make sense? So if we have an angle that's 154 and another angle that's 40, when we add just those two together, we've already busted 180, right? So could this angle possibly work for our triangle? No. So this one's not going to work. We don't have to worry about it. We're just going to use this angle for B. Is that okay? So we have to check that every time you're doing inverse sine here, just to be sure, okay? Because sometimes it will work, like on the next one we're going to do. All right, so we know that B is 25.4. So since we have two of our angles now, we could just subtract both of those from 180 to find our third missing angle. Does that make sense? So if you do that, what do you end up getting for C? 4.6. Are we okay with that? So now since you have that angle of C, we can set up our proportions and find side length of C. So I'm still going to use 3 over sine of 40 from A. So we're using 3 over sine of 40 equals, we don't know side length C, so we'll put a little c. And then sine of 114.6. So when we solve that one for C, in your calculator you can just type 3 times sine of 114.6 all divided by sine of 40. And that should give you our side length there. So say 4.2. Questions there? Yep, you're trying to solve your triangle, so anything that's missing you need to find. On a test, they would probably ask you to find like one specific missing thing, I would imagine, or they may list out all the missing things. You just have to pick the ones that match for what you found. So like it would have B, C, and C for us on this one, and you just have to pick the right one. Does that make sense? Right. Any other questions right now? Alrighty, so moving on to B over there. So same idea this time. They're giving us one angle and 2 of our sides. So let's draw this triangle and see what's going on here. So we know that angle A is 35. They tell us that side A is going to be 6 and side B is 8. So again, we've got to do some inverse trig to get that angle measure for us. So we'll set it up just like we did last time because they're giving you all the same information again. So we could say 6 over sine of 35 because those were our angle and side that matched up equals 8 over sine of B because we're not sure what that angle is, but we have the side there, so we can start from there. So just like we did last time, you could cross multiply, so sine of B times 6, and then 8 times sine of 35, and you'll have to divide by 6. So in your calculator, you're typing 8 times sine of 35 divided by 6, and that should give you what sine of B is. And what do we get there? 0.76. And so then when you do inverse sine, what do you get?
49.
So we get 49.9 degrees. So what quadrant is that going to fall in? First quadrant. So sine is positive there. Do you agree? So where else is sine positive? In quadrant 2. So again, we got to find that angle all the way around. So just like we did last time, we'll do 180 minus that 49.9, and that will give us the other option for angle B. And what do we get there? 130.1. So let's plug back in and see if these could work for us. So if we add A plus B, 35 plus 49.9, that's not going to go over 180, so that could make a triangle for us with another angle, right? So then what if we have 35 plus 130? If we add those two together, is that going to be more than 180? No, so we could have a second triangle with that angle measure as well. So we're going to have 2 triangles that we're solving for on this one. So we'll do our first triangle with the smaller angle. So I'm just going to say triangle number 1, and we're going to say that B equals 49.9 here. So if we know angle B and we already knew angle A, we could solve to find angle C. So subtract 180 minus the angles that we have. And what do you end up getting for C? 95.1, is that what I heard somebody say? So then, since we have angle C, we could find side C after setting up our law of sines, those little proportions. So we'll say 6 over sine of 35 equals side C over sine of angle C, which is 95.1. And so we'll cross multiply and solve there. What do you end up getting for side C? 10.4. Do you have questions on that? So now we're going to do all that same stuff again, but with our second angle, so our second triangle. So we're going to say, let's say instead that we use the angle of 130.1, so we'll let B equal 130.1 this time instead of the smaller angle. So we can still solve for C just like we did before. So we know that A is 35 and B is 130, so we'll add those and subtract from 180. So what would angle C be then? 14.9. And now that we have that angle C, we could solve to find side C. So you'll set up your proportions just like we did before. So 6 over sine of 35 is going to equal side C over sine of 14.9 this time. So then you'll cross multiply and solve for C. And what do we end up getting there? 2.7. Okay? Questions? So that's that. Yeah, so that's how we'll handle it if you have two triangles. So it's not too bad. You just got to keep them separate. The next one that we're going to do, this one's going to end up having no solution, so it's not going to work at all. So they're telling us that angle C is 50, side A is 2, and side C is 1. So let's draw that and get it set up. See what we can find. So we've got A, B, and C. Angle C is 50 degrees. Side A is 2, side C is 1. You're correct, it is. I put it on the wrong side. So then we have that side and angle pair, and then the other side we have is A, so we're trying to find angle A first, would have to be the first thing that we do there. So we'll say that 1 over sine of 50 equals 2 over sine of A. So then we'll cross multiply and solve from there. Yeah, so when we get sine of A equals what? I got 1.5 after you whoops, solve. So 1.5. So then you're doing in your calculator, we'll say A equals inverse sine of 1.5. And when you type that in, you get what? Undefined. So that's fine. We'll just say that this is like no solution, or a triangle cannot be formed with these measurements. What'd you say? No, it just is, it's not a triangle, so it's basically just gibberish. I don't know, it doesn't work. So, but you've got to be able to tell that it doesn't make a triangle. A triangle cannot be formed. Questions on that? Alright, so we've got two little word problems and then we'll be done. So to measure the height of a mountain, a surveyor takes two sightings of the peak at a distance of 900 meters apart on a direct line to the mountain. The first observation results in an angle of elevation of 47, and the second results in an angle of elevation of 35. if the transit is 2 meters high, what is the height h of the mountain? So we've got a lot going on here. So they took 2 observations. What did they tell us? That they're 900 meters apart, so that's down here. But we ultimately want to find the height here. So what can we do? Any ideas? Do we have any like angle side pairs or anything like that right now?
No.
The only side we know is this one, and so the angle that goes with that is like this little bitty angle right up there, and we don't have that right now. Could we potentially find that?
47 for top. Only 47.
So if we're looking, I know this picture is kind of hard to see because it's dark, but you've got like this big triangle and then you've got this smaller triangle in here. But if we're looking at this smaller triangle in here, or even the bigger one, this is 90 and we've got the bottom 2 angles, so we could find what the whole angle is supposed to be up top, or like what the smaller angle is supposed to be up top, and then like split those and find the angle that just goes with this side. Do I kind of get what I'm saying? Yeah. So I know it's super small there, so it's kind of hard to see. But let's find what the whole, both 2 angles up there are supposed to be. So if the bottom is 90 and this one's 35, what does the top angle have to be? So 180 minus 90 minus 35. So you could type that in your calculator. 180 minus 90 minus 35. So this whole thing is supposed to be 55. I'm going to write that. 55 degrees. So for the inside triangle, so that's just this part, we could figure out what that angle is by doing 180 minus 90 minus 47. And what do we get there? 43. So now that we know that this part is 43, we know that part plus the smaller part is supposed to be 55. So the smaller part had to be 12. Does that make any sense? Do you have questions right now? Are we okay? Do we need like a bigger picture to see this? Okay. So now that we've found this angle, we have that angle inside paired up. So we could start solving to find other things. So we could say 900 over sine of 12 equals some other stuff. So we could find, what would be helpful? The hypotenuse side or the inside side? Probably the inside side, because the other triangle shares that side as well, right? And we're getting closer to our height there. So we could use that one. That's what I would try to find. So the angle that's across from that is 35. We don't know what that length is, so I'm just going to put, I don't know, x there. Is that okay? And then sine of 35. So then we'll like cross multiply and solve like we've been doing there. And what do we end up getting for x? So in your calculator, you should be typing 900 times sine of 35 over sine of 12. Is that what y'all got? Yep. Now I said 0.88 for 2 places. So now that we know this side, that's like our hypotenuse of the inside triangle, right? So you could use regular right triangle trig there, since it's a right triangle. We don't have to worry about law of sines anymore because it's a right triangle again. So I would just do that. If we're using this 47 as our reference angle, we now have that hypotenuse and we want to find the adjacent side. Or the opposite side, not the adjacent side. So opposite and hypotenuse would be which trig function? Sine. So we'll say sine of 47 equals our opposite, which we don't know. It has h there for the height, so I'm going to put that. over the side that we found our hypotenuse there was x. So 2482.88. And solve that for h, and what do we get? So that's the height of this triangle. Is there anything else we're missing? That +2 from the height of your little transit thing, whatever that is. So you're going to take your answer there, add 2, and that would be our final answer. So 118.117.86 meters is our final height. Questions on that? I think the hardest part of that one is just getting it set up. Just trying to find all those angles that you need. Anything we need to talk about there? Not sure about, don't understand. Okay, so if we're good, we'll go on to the next one. So Coast Guard Station Zulu is located 120 miles due west of Station X-Ray. A ship at sea sends an SOS call that is received by each station. The call to Station Zulu indicates that the bearing of the ship from Zulu is north 40 degrees east. The call to Station X-Ray indicates that the bearing of the ship X-Ray is north 30 degrees west. So how far is each station from the ship? If a helicopter capable of flying 200 miles per hour is dispatched from the nearest station to the ship, how long will it take to reach the ship? So we need to figure out how far they are from the ship first, and then we'll worry about the second part. So you've got your picture here that kind of helps set things up. And we want to know this distance, like B and A here. Did y'all see that on your pictures? So that's what you're trying to find. And I think they give you everything you need there to get started on that. Yeah. We could find our missing angle C. I think that's all you have to find. 56. See? Yeah. So when they give you those bearings up here, those are like your dotted lines, those measurements. And so then the resulting angles from those are what we're using. So you didn't have to find those. They did that for you in your pictures. That's kind of helpful. But yeah, so the angle for down at Zulu is 50 and the angle at X-ray is 60. So 60 plus 50 and then subtract that from 180 is going to give us angle C. So we know that C is 70. Is that all right? Okay, so we have that angle inside paired up, so then you can set up your proportions to find the other two that we're missing. So we'll say that 120 over sine of 70 equals, we can find side A first, so that's going to be for X-ray. We'll have A over sine of 50. I said A, so that's going to tell you how far away X-ray is. Does that make sense? So what do we get for A there? 97.8. And I'm going to write X-ray down there so we remember which one this went with. Then we'll do the same thing again with trying to find side B, so we'll be using that angle 60. So what does B equal? 110.6. And that was for Zulu. So we've got how far each station is from the ship. So the second part of that question, it says if the helicopter is capable of flying 200 miles per hour is dispatched to the nearer station, how long is it going to take to get there? So which one is nearer, X-ray or Zulu? X-ray. So we got to figure out how long it's going to take to get there. So it goes 200 miles per hour. So this is kind of like those train tracks that we were doing earlier. So we know that in 1 hour, it's going to go 200 miles. And our measurements are also in miles, so we don't have to convert much. Let's do times 97.8 miles. And that's going to tell you how many hours it's going to take. Does So basically, you're just doing 97.8 divided by 200. And what do you get? 0.489 of an hour, which I don't know about y'all, but if it's like an emergency situation, they're like, oh, we'll be there in 0.489 of an hour. Does that make any kind of sense?
No.
So how can we convert that to something that's a little bit more tangible? If we multiply by 60, that would tell you how many minutes, right? So about 30 minutes, yeah. So we'll say times 60. So I got like 29.34. Definitely.
Space. They're in the water.
Well, it's a helicopter, but yeah. So that's that. Do we have questions?
Have a go.
All right, cool.
Oh, yeah.
It won't stop recording. Get ready. It won't stop recording. Fantastic. Great. Cool.
Wait, you do anything with recordings? Will that turn them in or something?
I put them on my website so that y'all can go home and watch it if you get confused. Or if you're out, you can watch it.
Wow, so we basically can feature every video?
Yeah, you're basically popular on the internet.
Yeah, we're basically celebrities.
Okay.
I'll be signing autographs after this class.
I don't know why this is not working. I can't get it to click out of it. I am. It won't click on anything.
That could be some rapper, sister in the 90s class. But you won't come rap.